Hi everybody, welcome back to Flat Water, Flat Earth. So because this is the first of these episodes, I'm going to give you a few so you don't feel cheated. Giant skeletons in America. A splendid haul of giant skeletons is reported from Homer in the United States. The district is a prolific field of Indian mounds, and important discoveries are continually being made there. On the fourth instance, beneath a small mound at 5 feet below the normal surface, 5 gigantic skeletons with their feet to the east were found in a grave with a stone floor. Remnants of burned bones and charcoal were plentiful in the grave, together with numerous stone vessels and weapons. The skeletons were those of veritable giants, and no mistake, the head of one being the size of a wooden bucket. Each of the giants must have been at least 9 feet in height. Among other striking articles in the grave was a beautifully finished stone pipe, the bowl being large and polished and engraved with figures of birds and beasts. This is especially interesting as showing that the use of tobacco does not always, as alleged by some medical authorities, stunt growth. There was beside the pipe a huge knife shaped like a sickle reversed and having a wooden handle held by leather thongs. Also a kettle holding about 6 quarts. It is said by those who are most competent to give an opinion in this matter that this is by far the most valuable find of giants ever made in America, and probably one of the oldest. It is a well-known fact that the bones of elephants, rhinoceroses, mastodons, and other huge animals have before now been exhibited and accepted as proof of prehistoric giants. The presence, however, in the grave at Homer of the pipe and the kettle is conclusive proof that the skeletons are those not only of genuine but also of genial giants. St. Louis, April 8th. The city of Moberly, Missouri is stirred up over the discovery of a wonderful buried city at the bottom of a coal shaft 360 feet deep, which was being sunk near the city. A hard and thick stratum of lava which arches in the buried city, the streets of which are regularly laid out and enclosed by walls of stone, which is cut and dressed in fairly good although rude style of masonry. A hall 30 by 100 feet was discovered, wherein were stone benches and tools of all descriptions for mechanical service. Do you hear that? A 30 by 100 foot hall was discovered with stone benches and tools of all descriptions of mechanical service. Further search disclosed statues and images made of a composition closely resembling bronze, lacking luster. A stone foundation was found located in a wide court or street, and from it a stream of perfectly pure water flowing, which, upon being tested, was found to be strongly impregnated with limestone. The most wonderful of all was lying beside the fountain, the portion of a skeleton of a human being. The bones of the leg were measured, the femur measuring 4 1/2 feet, the tibia 4 feet and 3 inches, showing that when alive the figure was 3 times the size of an ordinary man, and possessed of a wonderful muscular power and quickness. The head bones had separated in 2 pieces, the sagittal and the corno suturus having been destroyed. The implements found embrace bronze and flint knives, stone and granite hammers, metallic saws of rude workmanship, but proved metal, and others of a similar character. They are not so highly polished, nor so accurately made as those now finished by our best mechanics, but they show skill and an evidence of an advanced civilization that are positively wonderful. The searching party spent 12 hours in the depths and only gave up explorations because of the oil in their lamps being low. No end to the wonderful discovery was reached. The facts above are vouched for by Mr. David Coates, the recorder of the city of Moberly, and Mr. George Keeling, city marshal, who were of the exploring party. A further extended search will be made in a day or 2. So that was a buried city discovered, St. Louis, April 8th. 10-foot giants, explorers' discovery in Mexico. Tepeo, Nayarit, Mexico. Captain Page, an American, and Captain Donalds, an Englishman, who have returned from an unsuccessful search for legendary Spanish gold mines, report the discovery of the bones of a race of giants who towered more than 10 feet in height. The 2 men said their discovery was made in great burial mounds in mountains southwest of here, and the state of preservation in which they found the bones indicated that the giant race lived in this region more than 500 years ago. Remains of Giants. Extract of a letter from Kanhawa, America, September 28th. On the 19th instant, 4 very large skeletons were found in a field, which had for 20 years past been cultivated in corn. They were deposited in a mound, apparently very ancient. The first was discovered by the owner of the field having plowed it up, which induced him to make a further examination, when 3 others were found. The bones are perfectly sound and much larger than common, particularly the skulls, which can be very easily slipped over the largest man's head. The upper jawbone has 1 row of double teeth only on the left side. It is hoped that the curiosity of the public may excite them to examine the skeletons and furnish some interesting speculations on the subject. Bones of giants found. Well-developed mammoth skeletons in an Indiana mound. From the Associated Press. Crawfordsville, Indiana, October 26. In a gravel pit along the high bluffs of Sugar Creek, 25 giant skeletons have been exhumed, and the unburying of these mammoth bones is still going on. The last skeleton taken out measured 7 feet in length. The femur and the pelvic bones are twice as large as those of an ordinary man. The grinning skull contained a perfect set of teeth, with an enamel as beautiful as polished marble. The bones were perfect in every detail. Of the whole number of skeletons thus far found, only 2 indicate immature development, the remainder representing the framework of a race of men evidently extinct for centuries. This is certainly the first discovery of skeletons in which the characteristic development of giants has been observed. 12 skeletons of giant Indians found under Klamath Marsh. Another chapter of prehistoric Klamath has come to light with the recent discovery of an Indian burial ground by a road construction crew at a point in Klamath Marsh, over which the old military trail is routed. 12 skeletons, all of full-grown Indians, were uncovered by a road scraper. Alongside the skeletons, buried in 3 feet of moist, loamy soil, were numerous spears, arrowheads, mortars, pestles, and other instruments characteristic of the domestic and war activities of the Klamath Indians. A striking feature of the discovery, as compared with other discoveries of a similar nature, is the size of the skulls. According to William Zed, connected with the Reservation Forest Service, who is in this city today, one jawbone was so big that it fitted over the jawbone of a road worker 6 foot 4 inches tall. The skulls were of exceptional thickness, thicker, Mr. Zeb said, than the ordinary Indian skull. On the side of one skull was a hole which clearly indicated violence of some sort, probably an arrow through the temple. 3 theories have been advanced by those versed in Indian lore on the probable cause of the selection of this spot for a burial ground. The violent death of one of the Indians leads to the belief that at this spot a battle between 2 Indian tribes took place, and that the fatalities of the engagement were buried on the battleground site. This theory is further substantiated by the fact that all the skeletons found were of full-grown adults of large size. At the point where the skeletons were found is an ideal hunting ground. Timber juts out into the marsh, from both sides forming a strait. It is logical to assume that Indians frequented this spot to shoot ducks and geese, and that to commemorate the happy hunting ground they buried their dead there, it is claimed. The third theory is that the road workers merely uncovered an ordinary Indian burial ground, similar to many that have been found in Klamath from time to time, since the white man has inhabited the country. The road crew were working for the Indian Service and were constructing a road to Silver Lake through the Klamath. Owing to the dry summer and the consequent drying up of the marsh, the road crew took the opportunity to fill in a roadbed across the straits of the marsh. The new road will lessen the distance to Silver Lake from the reservation by over 30 miles. Giant and Ancient Mound. Special to the Washington Post, June 23, 1908. Prequest Historical Newspapers, The Washington Post, 1877 to 1996, page 4. Giant and Ancient Mound. Curious relics of prehistoric times is found in the tomb. Special to the Washington Post. Huntington, West Virginia, June 22. The municipal authorities of Central City, 4 miles west of here, 3 weeks ago ordered the removal of a prehistoric mound from 13th Street. Today, 12 feet above the base of the mound, a gigantic human skeleton was discovered. It is almost 7 feet in length and of massive proportions. It was surrounded by a mass of rude trinkets. 8 huge copper bracelets were discovered. These, when burnished, proved to be of purest beaten copper and a perfect preservation. Rude stone vessels, hatchets, and arrowheads were found with the skeleton. A curiously inscribed totem was found at the head of the skeleton. The Smithsonian Institution will be notified of the discovery. Skeletons of giant Indians are found. Klamath Falls, Oregon, October 21. Skeletons of 12 giant Indians, relics of prehistoric times, were uncovered by road workmen in Klamath Marsh country, it became known today. One jawbone was a particularly immense size. Opinion here is divided as to whether it was an old Indian burial ground or a battleground where the Indians buried their killed where they fell. Many Indian relics were uncovered near the skeletons. Giant skeleton found in bed of sand in northwestern Ohio. Man was 8 feet high. Bowling Green, Ohio, August 14. While excavating for sand for building on the Charles Whitmer farm, William Jones unearthed the skeleton of a gigantic man. It is in a fair state of preservation and will be preserved, as it is thought that it may have some scientific value. The skeleton was found in a sitting posture, and when the bones were placed in a horizontal position, they indicated that the height of the man in life must have been over 8 feet. The head is of enormous size, being 12 inches in diameter. It is believed that it is the skeleton of a member of a prehistoric race of giants. Further excavations will be made to see if other graves cannot be found. Giant skeletons found. Archaeologists to send expedition to explore graveyards in New Mexico where bodies were unearthed. Special to the New York Times. So this is the New York Times, Feb 11, 1902. LA, California, Feb 10. Owing to the discovery of the remains of a race of giants in Guadalupe, New Mexico, antiquarians and archaeologists are preparing an expedition further to explore that region. This determination is based on the excitement that exists among the people of a scope of country near Mesa Rico, about 200 miles southeast of Las Vegas, where an old burial ground has been discovered that has yielded skeletons of enormous size. Luciana Quintana, on whose ranch the ancient burial plot is located, discovered 2 stones that bore curious inscriptions. And beneath these were found in shallow excavations the bones of a frame that could not have been less than 12 feet in length. The men who opened the grave say the forearm was 4 feet long, and that in a well-preserved jaw the lower teeth ranged from the size of a hickory nut to that of the largest walnut in size. The chest of the being is reported as having a circumference of 7 feet. Quintana, who has uncovered many other burial places, expresses the opinion that perhaps thousands of skeletons of a race of giants long extinct will be found. This supposition is based on the traditions handed down from the early Spanish invasion that have detailed knowledge of the existence of a race of giants that inhabited the plains of what now is eastern New Mexico. Indian legends and carvings also in the same section indicate the existence of such a race. Giant skeleton found. Springfield, Ohio, April 6. A giant skeleton has been unearthed at the Woolerton farm, west of here, near Tippecanoe City. This skeleton measures 8 feet from the top of the head to the ankles, the feet being missing. The skull is large enough to fit as a helmet over the average man's head. The skeleton was one of several found buried in the form of a wheel under a mound, with the feet toward the hub. Giant skeletons found. Cave in Mexico gives up the bones of an ancient race. Special to the New York Times. New York Times, published May 4, 1908. Boston, May 3rd. Charles C. Clapp, who has recently returned from Mexico, where he has been in charge of Thomas W. Lawson's mining interests, has called the attention of Professor Agassiz to a remarkable discovery made by him. He found in Mexico a cave containing some 200 skeletons of men, each above 8 feet in height. So that's 200 skeletons at 8 feet. And that means if you lay the bones out and they come out to 8 feet, the person is probably closer to 9 feet. When you add in the adjustment for the cartilage in the knees, it ends up being quite a bit bigger. So if you have 200 skeletons of 8 feet, I would say giants existed. The cave was evidently the burial place of a race of giants who antedated the Aztecs. Mr. Clapp arranged the bones of one of these skeletons and found the total length to be 8 feet 11 inches. The femur reached up to his thigh, and the molars were big enough to crack a coconut. The head measured 18 inches from front to back. That is massive. Notable giants. So there's one here where I've noticed this, that it's been rewritten several dozen times in different newspapers throughout America, throughout a 50 to 100 year period. They continually reuse this one piece. So I think I found one of the original articles that had the full piece in it, and most of the other articles, they take bits and pieces of it and fit it into their newspaper where they can. So you'll notice a whole bunch of this one story of giants coming down, and I think this is a piece of it. So we'll get to this one shortly. It's incredible. Race of men were giants. Bones recently found show gigantic stature and a low order of intelligence. 11 skeletons of primitive men with foreheads sloping directly back from the eyes and with 2 rows of teeth in the front upper jaw have been uncovered in Craigs Hill at Ellensburg, Washington. They were found about 20 feet below the surface, 20 feet back from the face of the slope, in a cement rock formation over which was a layer of shale. Prehistoric man is found near Norwalk. Pitchville is excited over the finding of a giant skeleton which measured over 8 feet in length. It's either Pitchville or Fitchville. Norwalk, Ohio, February 28. What is believed to be the skeleton of a prehistoric giant was unearthed in the cemetery in Fitchville. The skeleton of another human being that is thought to have been buried at the same time also was unearthed. The discovery of the bones was made by Cornelius Springstead, sexton of Fitchville Cemetery, while he was engaged in digging a grave for the remains of John Laughlin, an aged pioneer resident of Fitchville. The Laughlin family burial lot in the Fitchville Cemetery has been owned by the Laughlin family for the past 75 years, and a large number of members of the family have been buried there. The cemetery is located on a high piece of ground, and the Laughlin lot is located on the highest point in the cemetery, a sort of a mound. Sexton Springstead had dug down to a depth of about 6 feet when his spade struck against some hard substance. Scraping away the dirt, Springstead was surprised to find that he had unearthed a portion of a human skeleton. Continuing his work, he soon had the entire skeleton unearthed. The skeleton, which was intact and in an excellent state of preservation, lay on its back with both arms extended out at right angles with the body, showing that it had never been enclosed in a coffin. In order to unearth the bones of the arms and hands and legs, it was necessary to dig into the sides and one end of the grave for quite a distance. When the skeleton was finally entirely uncovered, it was seen to be that of a giant man, which when measured proved to be about 8 feet in length. Springstead is a man of average height, but the hip bones of the skeleton were found to be fully 6 inches longer than his are. The other bones of the skeleton were proportionally long. Unearthed giant skeletons. Illinois mound rich in relics of prehistoric days. Some proved to be 8 feet long. Diggers believe they have found an ancient burying ground. Quincy, Illinois, November 13. Excavations now going on the hilltop farm of Mrs. M. Crabtree, 8 miles from Mount Sterling, Brown County, are revealing a large number of prehistoric relics. The diggers are at work upon a mound. With the first day's work, the mound began to yield traces of handiwork of past ages and the bones of those who had wrought it, and others immediately joined in the search, still going on. Thus far, several skeletons by actual measurement 8 feet long, and several pieces of remarkable pottery, beads, and curious implements have been taken out. The bones crumble badly almost as soon as they are taken in the open air. They are so numerous that it is believed a prehistoric burying ground has been found, greater in extent and more perfectly preserved than any yet discovered. Under the bones of each of the ancient dead were found pieces of pottery. Beneath the fragments of the skulls of some of them vases, the largest of which would easily hold 2 gallons. Underneath one skeleton was a curious bowl, in the center of which was the figure of a king seated upon a log, and it is thought that these bones may be those of a great leader of the race that once ruled this portion of the continent. Strangest of all, the articles found with the bones were implements that are apparently made of bamboo, some of them evidently shaped for purposes of weaving. Vast quantities of beads were found in the mound of a strange material, almost white, and possibly made from the best of potter's clay. Skeleton of a giant that antedates Adam. Miamisburg, Ohio, December 23rd. A discovery of the greatest scientific interest was made when the pickaxes of Edward W. Ebert and Edward Kaufman of this race disturbed the long repose of a skeleton that had been buried for no one man may tell how many thousands of years. Giant skeleton found upon Arizona ranch. Prescott, Arizona, August 5th. The skeleton of a human being twice as large as any man living today was found here by Peter Mars on his farm northwest of here. The skeleton is perfect. The bones do not resemble those of ancient tribes found in Verde and other valleys of this country. Skeleton of giant found. The Wheeling Times. So interesting, this will be Wheeling, Ohio, where there's tons of mounds. Skeleton of a giant found. A day or two since, some workmen engaged in subsoiling the grounds of Sheriff Wickham at his vineyard in East Wheeling came across a human skeleton. Although much decayed, there was a little difficulty in identifying it by placing the bones, which could not have belonged to other than a human body, in their original position. The impression made by the skeleton in the earth and the skeleton itself were measured by the sheriff and a brother in the craft locale, both of whom were prepared to swear that it was 10 feet 9 inches in length. Its jaws and teeth were almost as large as those of a horse. The bones are to be seen at the sheriff's office. Wheeling Times. Bones of prehistoric giant. Great discovery made by scientists near Bowling Green, Ohio. Toledo, Ohio, August 18. A discovery of great interest to scientists has been made at Bowling Green, a small village near here. The skeletons of a prehistoric giant was exhumed. When placed together when it was in life, it measured nearly 9 feet in length. The skull is almost 12 inches in diameter, and there are 2 distinct rows of teeth in the massive jaw. The bones are well preserved, with the exception of the pelvic bones, which are considerably decayed. The arms of the giant measure many inches more than those of a man today, and were the lower limbs not so long, the skeletons would bear a close resemblance to a huge gorilla. Giant mummies found in desert. Men 8 or 9 feet tall lived in Colorado 80,000 years ago, Club informed. A retired Ohio doctor has discovered relics of an ancient civilization whose men were 8 or 9 feet tall in the Colorado desert near the Arizona-Nevada-California line, an associate said today. Howard E. Hill of LA, speaking before the Transportation Club, disclosed that several well-preserved mummies were taken Sunday from caverns in an area roughly 180 miles square extending through much of southern Nevada from Death Valley, California, across the Colorado River into Arizona. Hill said the discoverer is Dr. F. Bruce Russell, retired Cincinnati physician who came across the first of several tunnels in 1931, shortly after coming west and deciding to try mining for his health. Not until this year, however, did Dr. Russell go into the situation thoroughly. Hill told the luncheon with Dr. Daniel S. Bovee of LA, who with his father helped open up New Mexico's cliff dwellings. Dr. Russell has found mummified remains together with implements of the civilization which Dr. Bovee had tentatively placed at about 80,000 years old. These giants are clothed in garments consisting of a medium-length jacket and trouser, extending slightly below the knees, said Hill. The texture of the materials is said to resemble gray-dyed sheepskin, but obviously it was taken from an animal unknown today. Hill said that in another cavern was found the ritual hall of the ancient people, together working with devices and markings similar to those now used by the Masonic order. In a long tunnel were well-preserved remains of animals, including elephants and tigers. So far, Hill added, no women have been found. He said the explorers believed that what they found was the burial place of the tribe's hierarchy. Hieroglyphics, he added, bear a resemblance to what is known of those from the lost continent of Atlantis. They are chiseled, he added, on carefully polished granite. He said Dr. Viola V. Pettit of London, who made excavations around Petra on the Arabian desert, shortly will begin an inspection of the remains. So you see these things, they have found these obviously they've found these things many, many times. And what has happened to them? They have disappeared every single time. And you have this guy, Dr. Viola V. Pettit of London, who began inspections of the remains, whatever came of them.